When you wake up in your morning, head on down the river, see your soul, feel it sway.
Happy Monday and welcome to episode 6 of A Man in a Microphone with your host, Cole Henry. I'm sorry for missing last Friday because, life just gets in the way sometimes. I've been very busy lately, so I'm hoping to be back on schedule this week, so there should be an episode on Friday, no worries. But this week on the docket, we have the movie. I want to talk about Atomic Blonde. I want to talk about Call of Duty World War II. And I probably want to talk a little bit more about Super Mario Odyssey because I keep finding immense enjoyment in it. But before we get into that, you can follow the show on Twitter at AMAAM Podcast. And for Friday's episode, I want to really take a deep dive into the filmography of Takeshi Kitano, who is my favorite director. And he's sort of a modern-day Renaissance man. And on my website, I'm writing a very extensive, very long sort of deep dive into the filmic world that his movies sort of encompass and harbor. And so that article or that piece should go live on Friday, as well as Friday's episode, which will be sort of a companion piece. They'll kind of complement each other. So, be excited for that. Be ready. And let's just hop into the film I want to talk about on this fine Monday. And that is Atomic Blonde, which came out earlier this year, and I kind of missed it early on, but over the weekend I finally got around to watching it, and I really liked it. I did. People are saying it's better than John Wick. I don't personally agree with that, but it definitely stands up there with John Wick as one of the best directed and best choreographed action movies of the past 5 or so years, and that's thanks to incredible stunt work. Keeping the action in wides, not pretty much relying on any steady cam whatsoever. I mean, any shaky cam whatsoever. There's plenty of steady cam, which is good. But it's a pretty awesome movie. And what differs it from John Wick is, well, obviously the protagonist being, it's not Keanu Reeves, it's Charlize Theron. And she is a complete badass in this movie. She sells all of her stunts. She is super, super talented. And seeing her sort of bud into a modern action heroine is awesome between Mad Max and this, and I hope she keeps it up. I really hope she does. She's an awesome actress, and the action in this movie is incredible. There is a certain sequence about 3/4 through it that is shot in one take with some stealth cuts here and there, but it is breathtaking. It's incredibly crafted. It's incredibly blocked. The choreography is amazing. The people in the scene get tired as the fight goes on and on and on. It doesn't seem to end. And it's blunt. It's really brutal. It's fisticuffs. It's shootout. It's knives. It's everything you could really want in an action scene. And it is sort of the high point of the movie. It's what, if I were to recommend this movie to someone, it's what I would sell the movie on, would be this scene. Because everything else, while good, does not hold one's attention as well as that scene does. But watching that scene on YouTube without the context that it has really takes a lot of the emotion and the intensity and sort of the ferocity out of that scene and takes the importance out of that scene. So I would recommend watching the movie through and through to get the most out of that scene as possible. But the story is based on the graphic novel The Coldest City by Anthony Johnston, which is about spies in East and West Berlin in 1989, right before the fall of the Berlin Wall in the USSR. And the story just goes all over the place. It's so convoluted. There's plot holes galore. There's betrayal after betrayal after betrayal, and it sort of just becomes redundant over time. But it's all well acted. James McAvoy is pretty much the sort of other character we spend the most time with between Charlize Theron, and as always, he's awesome. And then there's Sofia Boutella as a French spy who's really good in this movie. I'm glad she's getting more actual acting roles, unlike her silent, just stunt-based role in the first Kingsman movie. But she's awesome in this movie. And John Goodman's in it for like 10 minutes, and he just plays John Goodman. like John Goodman plays John Goodman in every movie he's been in recently. But what sells this movie is the action and the feminine power that the movie harbors, and Charlize Theron really just sells it through and through. And it's directed with a keen eye by David Leitch, who helped on the first John Wick movie as a co-director, and you can tell he knows what he's doing because his stunt work is amazing. His eye for action is beautiful. He keeps all of it in frame. He allows the camera to follow. He's not afraid of just having a long take. And if you've been listening since episode 1, you know I bring up long takes in pretty much every episode because they're pretty much my favorite thing in cinema is the long take. I do not like cutting that much. I think it breaks repetition in a lot of ways. Like, if any of you have read Andrei Tarkovsky's sort of filmic autobiography, Sculpting in Time, he talks about how editing is the bane of filmmaking, how film is sculpting in time, and when you edit, it breaks the time flow of the film, it breaks the immersion, it breaks the sense of reality that some of these films have. And the fact that they go for so many long takes in this movie really shows that David Leitch respects filmmaking and has a keen talent and assurance in his whole team and himself and his style that will sell it. And speaking of style, this movie oozes style. It's 1989. The soundtrack is just chocked full of new wave hits. And while to a point it gets like kind of pandering where it's like, okay, how many times can you hear like Duran Duran or Devo or something in a movie between like this and Stranger Things and all of the 80s nostalgia resurgence that's happened in the past 2 or 3 years. But it works. I'm always a fan of it, you know. So it is what it is, but I highly recommend the movie. It's available on streaming services everywhere. It's on Blu-ray. It's been on Blu-ray and on streaming services for a little while now. Actually, it might not be on Blu-ray yet. I'm not 100% sure. Probably should have checked, but let's just say it is. So, yeah, that is what it is. And to sort of transition, as terribly as I always do, into games, I want to start talking about Call of Duty World War II, which I purchased on Friday upon its release, and I beat the story yesterday on Sunday. I played it all weekend, and I can safely and sort of assuredly say that it is the best Call of Duty campaign yet. And while for some people that might be a low bar, I for one sort of always enjoy the pulpy, spectacle-driven action movie nature of the Call of Duty campaigns. And while they've sort of gotten lost in the weeds and become more and more convoluted and messy in the past few years, Call of Duty World War II sort of just brings it back home. It feels like you're playing through Band of Brothers or something. And the thing that makes this game stand out from the rest of the Call of Duty oeuvre is the emphasis on characters and on cutscenes and on caring about how your cutscenes look. Most Call of Duty games, it's, you know, the fade to black cutscene, fade back into gameplay. But the cutscenes in this game, it feels like it was actually directed with an eye for cinema. There's some beautiful sweeping shots, beautiful tracking shots, and the cutscenes, you know, flow between combat and gameplay super well, like they did in Max Payne 3, for example. But the storytelling and the direction of the cutscenes and the acting is sort of on a whole nother level than any other Call of Duty game has been. This game, you know, I was worried because I just played Wolfenstein, and the way that game tackles themes of Nazism and racism and bigotry and sort of all of that stuff, it tackles it head on. It just gives a big fuck you to all of that. And while this game does that more subtly and with a lot less tongue-in-cheek nature, this game still tackles some surprisingly real and deep and sort of important and kind of horrific themes and things that happened during the war with sort of the respect and, you know, due diligence that you wouldn't expect from a Call of Duty game. Like, you can tell when they're making this campaign, the developers, Sledgehammer, they had such an utmost respect and sort of reverence for the GIs who fought in this war, regardless of their skin color, because there are some moments with an African American GI in this game where, you know, racism is dealt with head on, because one of the main characters in the game, you know, sort of gives the African American soldier some shit, and then at the end of the day they realize they're just brothers in battle. And, you know, that's cliche, but Call of Duty games story modes are built on cliche, but this game really plays with cliche and rises above it, and it is that being said, it's still in the same mold of a Saving Private Ryan or a Band of Brothers, in the sense that it follows one group of guys, you know, the farm boy, the dude from Brooklyn, etc. It follows them from D-Day to the fall of the German army in 45 after the Battle of the Bulge. And I think the campaign itself is worth the $60. It's hard because there's a reliance on health packs now, which is really cool. There's no regenerating health. There's the reticle is default turned off in the campaign, which really adds to the immersion of what's going on. And what's cool is you have your squad mates, and they can toss you med packs or health. Well, yeah, med packs or health, and they can toss you ammo. They can call out where enemies are. They can toss you smoke grenades to call in for some mortar support or some fire support. And the way you get these things from your squad mates is on the bottom right hand of the screen. There's a little yellow meter, and as you kill more Nazis or do more heroic tasks, these meters will fill up, and then you can hit up on the D-pad, and he'll toss you a health pack, or he'll toss you ammo, or something. And in each mission, there's 2 to 3 heroic tasks, and they'll pop up. It'll be there. You'll see you'll run into a bunker, and there'll be a GI fighting with a Nazi on the ground. And you can pop the Nazi and save the GI, and then that'll be a heroic task. Or you'll see a U.S. soldier get shot in the gut, and you can, when an MG42 opens up on a street, and you can grab him and sort of drag him to cover as bullets whiz by and kick the dirt up and kick the street up around you. And it's super immersive. And what helps is the weapon design in this game is incredible, and the sound design is some of the meatiest and sort of terrifying sound design I've heard in a first-person shooter kind of war game since last year's Battlefield 1. Because it is an assault on the senses. It is just purely visceral, and I think the game needed that. There is some sort of too much of a reliance on, the Call of Duty spectacle we've come to know, where there's whole trains exploding, and you're falling on the ground, there's train cars flying over you, you're always getting knocked out and blown back, and you're always shell shocked like Tom Hanks is in Saving Private Ryan. And it gets to a point in the game where it's kind of beating a dead horse, but when you go into a Call of Duty campaign, you're in for moments like that. But this game rises above those moments and makes those moments less of an annoyance, because everything else that's not those moments is awesome. There's an incredible, incredible mission that's possibly my favorite mission of any Call of Duty campaign mission ever, where you play as a French female resistance fighter, and you sneak into a Nazi garrison in Nazi-occupied Paris. And it's just a purely espionage mission where you have to memorize lines in German that you need to say to German officers at checkpoints. You have a pen with a little knife in it, and it is super cool. I don't want to spoil anything else about it. You can walk through it freely for as long as you want, but there's a sense of urgency to it where if you feel like you walk around too much, if you poke your nose around too many corners, you might actually get captured. And it's just an all-around super compelling campaign. Same goes for the zombies. I'm not going to say it's the best zombies yet because I haven't spent much time with it, but it's definitely the best zombies since World at War, and it's the first zombies that's ever genuinely scary, because some of the ex-guys from Visceral, the makers of Dead Space and stuff, helped develop the zombies mode in this game, and it's actually legitimately scary. The zombie design is unsettling. The sound effects are more unsettling. There's jump scares and stuff. There's all the new characters are cool. You have David Tennant of Doctor Who fame, who plays a character with just a thick, British accent. It's just funny. So he has a sense of levity to the sort of dire situation that the zombies mode has. There's boss battles. There's a lot more objectives. It's more story based than most zombie modes are, and that's something I'll definitely keep playing and getting into and sort of learning more about as one does with the zombie mode. And the multiplayer is super fun. They've added this new thing called the headquarters, where it's sort of like the tower from Destiny. It's a social hub. You can walk around, you can commend players, you can challenge them to 1v1 matches. You can go to task masters, and you can get tasks that'll reward you with a supply drop or XP bonuses, get 15 kills with a shotgun in team deathmatch, and you cash that and you'll get a supply drop, and you'll get some bullshit from the supply drop because supply drops and loot boxes and random boxes and all that stuff are just a fucking bane on video game development. I hate them whenever I see them. So that's probably my biggest fault with this game, is the reliance on supply drops, which is just complete bullshit that panders to people with gambling problems, and it's just really weird. And I'm just waiting for the day where someone cracks down on these things and gets rid of them. But the multiplayer overall, it's Call of Duty. It's fun though. It's really, the maps are pretty cool. There's maps that are featured in the campaign, but there's also maps like you fight on a destroyer in the Pacific Ocean, and was one of the maps, and it's just, I think it's really fun. There's divisions now, which are like classes in Battlefield that you can rank up. You can prestige guns now. You can prestige classes. You can prestige your character as always. You can play as a female character, which isn't realistic you can play as a female like American GI, which isn't realistic to what happened in the war, but it's the multiplayer mode, and people are getting up in arms about it, which is just dumb. So you should play it. You should be able to play as who you want to play as. There's no swastikas in the multiplayer, which people are also getting mad at, but I see why they didn't add that, because if you're playing as the Axis, you probably, in this day and age, or ever, don't want to be playing as a legitimate Nazi, so I understand that. But the Iron Cross is still prominent in multiplayer maps and on Nazi characters, so there's still that. And that's really all I have to say about Call of Duty World War II. I think it's a great game. I think it's worth $60. It looks beautiful on Xbox One. It's the best looking Call of Duty yet. It's one of the best looking games this year, in all honesty. But it's not the most fun game of the year. The most fun game of the year is Super Mario Odyssey. I'm still grinding away at that. I just finished the sort of main story mode. I just saw credits last night, and now I'm hopping back in to just get more moons, because I still have I need like 600 more moons. I have about 260 right now, 270. I'm not 100% sure, and I don't want to grab my Switch. It's on the other side of the room, but that game is just endless joy. It really is. And Nintendo they've done something special with this game, just like they did something special earlier this year with Zelda. And I think it's safe to say that the Nintendo Switch has probably the best launch year of any console ever, between Zelda, 10 out of 10, Mario, 10 out of 10, Mario Kart 8 Remaster, which is a 10 out of 10, then and now, and just a deluge of awesome indie titles being ported and made specifically for the Switch, between Sniper Clips and, they put Cave Story on there, and Cave Story is awesome. They're bringing LA Noire to the Switch. The Doom is coming to the Switch in like a month or so, like a month or so. So it's really cool to see first-party Nintendo developers supporting the shit out of this console with incredible games, and to see third-party developers and indie developers really embracing the system and porting or creating games for it that really make the Nintendo Switch stand out from everything else more than it already does, with it being a sort of portable system. And yeah, Mario's awesome. Obviously, pick that up if you can. And pick up Call of Duty. They're great games. I haven't really touched Assassin's Creed Origins since I got it. I'll probably get back into that whenever I burn out in Call of Duty in like a month or so. So we'll see if I have more to say about that when the time comes. I'm not even sure if I'll play it again. I might, sell it or something. I liked it at first, but the more I distance myself from it, the less I see myself returning to it. So we'll see how that goes. And I think that's going to be it for today's episode. And as always, I start and end the show with a song. And this week's song is These Three Things by Ott. It's their new single, and it's, if you know the band Ott, it's a lot more dancey and sort of clubbish than their music. There's a lot more reliance on electronic and synthesizers than always, but there's still the awesome guitar work that's come to be prominent in Ott's music. And they're sort of an art punk band, and they're still embracing that fully. And it's the first single off their third album, Room Inside the World, which is out February 16th on Merge Records, which is the band's debut on that label. And it's their follow-up to 2015's incredible, sort of flawless album, Sun Coming Down. And if you haven't listened to that, listen to that album. But support them, buy their music, listen to them on Spotify, do what you can to help them out. Musicians, they can always use your money, and these guys are some of the best in the biz today. So enjoy and have a great week. I'll be back in your guys' ears on Friday, and take care.